It's Stars and Stripes Day, June 14th. It's Flags Day. I've decided to leave the Constitution this week and insert an American flag podcast. We'll resume the Constitution next week. The origins of the first flag involve George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and Elizabeth Betsy Ross. Betsy was the ninth of 17 children. Um, eight siblings died as infants or small children from various diseases like yellow fever and chickenpox. She grew up wearing plain clothes and in a strict, disciplined Quaker home. Her father apprenticed her out as a teenager to learn to be an upholsterer. She met and fell in love with John Ross. She married him in a tavern, and then she was excommunicated from the Quakers and she joined the um, Parish of Christ Church with Ross's family, the same church that George Washington went to. Washington and John Ross were friends and they met at each other's homes frequently. Benjamin Franklin was over the Pennsylvania Committee for Safety with John Ross, and they had been ordered to construct gunboats for the Revolutionary War. These boats needed flags. Can you see where I'm going with this? These people were connected. Betsy was commissioned to sew flags for the boats because of her husband's contacts. Washington came to her house to talk to her about the flag, and she convinced him to do five-pointed stars instead of six-pointed ones. She did make hundreds of flags in her lifetime, and her first and second husbands were killed in the Revolutionary War. The third husband and her raised seven children. There is a stamp that was made in her honor in 1952 on her 200th birthday year. She was credited with making the first 13 colony United States flag. She became a symbol of women's contribution to the war. And there were other makers at this time, too. One of them was Mary Young Pickersgill, who made flags. And she made them with 15 stars because two more states had joined the Union. She's the one that made a very large flag and a smaller flag with 15 stars for Fort McHenry. These were flying during the War of 1812. The War of 1812 was declared by Congress when England decided they wanted to capture American men on trade ships. They used the excuse that Americans were deserters and still British. It was during the Napoleon Wars between France and England was desperate for more manpower. The British were supplying the American natives with weapons to fight the French and American settlers in the Midwest, as well as taking our ships with seamen. They had taken on one of these ships Dr. Beans, a prisoner, and the United States had negotiated a prisoner exchange for him. Two American lawyers, Francis Scott Key and Skinner, boarded the British ship to conduct the exchange. In the process, they overheard the plan for the British ships. Were expecting more ships to come in that night and that they were going to bomb Fort McHenry. And so, because they'd heard this, they were detained on the ship until after the attack. This is when Francis Scott Key wrote the Star Spangled Banner. He wrote it on the back of an envelope in his pocket. It was it was a 10-hour bombardment, and that he watched the ramparts of the fort walls. That's what ramparts are. The fort walls, and the fort was bombed, and it was so smoky he just couldn't see much else. And then the smoke started to drift away, and there it was. The United States flag that Mary had made was still there. The flag that became the symbol of freedom and liberty, that the Americans were really feeling the difference of our Constitution and the difference it was making in their lives at that time. During the Revolutionary War, the soldiers at Fort Stanwix in Massachusetts were brought the news in 1777. The news came that a new official flag had been made, and it said what it looked like. And so these soldiers decided they wanted a flag for their fort, so everybody would know they were Americans. So they used the soldiers' white shirts and the red flannel petticoats of the officers' wives and the captain's blue coat, and they made a flag. And that flag was a visual reminder of what had been fought for and what they were fighting for: freedom. It is still that for us today. The first flag to fly over the Americas was called the Title of Liberty. In the Book of Mormon, it tells the story of Captain Moroni. The Lamanites were the enemy, and he needed to help the brave men under his command to have courage to fight a battle where they were so very outnumbered. He took off his coat and he wrote on it, "In memory of our God, our religion, and freedom, and our peace, and our wives, and our children." He fastened it at the end of a pole, and when he went among the people with this banner, the people came running with their weapons and their armor to follow him. Flags play an important role in giving us a symbol to represent our feelings about love of country and freedom. My husband and I used to take our family to the 24th of July parade in Salt Lake City. It's a big deal in Utah. The children would sit on blankets in front of us, and we sat in chairs behind them. One year, a man was running for senator, so before the parade started, he was walking the street handing out small American flags to everyone. About halfway through the parade, I noticed my husband was missing. I was looking for him all over the place, and slowly I saw him coming back to me. He was picking up those small flags that people had dropped and were walking on. He couldn't stand to see that. He fought in Vietnam and saw most of his buddies killed all around him. He had been in two different hospital ships himself. He knows firsthand that many have spilt their blood for the flag. He has seen the hardships of countries without freedoms we have. The flag is treated with reverence in our home. There are specific guidelines for hanging, folding, and displaying the flag that should be observed. The Boy Scouts of America will properly dispose of old flags for you. Teaching children respect for the flag in our schools and by our example is still important. I wrote a letter to our oldest son when he was on a mission in Australia for our church. And 9/11 had just happened, and I wanted him to know what was going on at home. He let me read that letter recently, and it brought back memories of that time in the United States. I told him about the newscast of New Yorkers walking across the Brooklyn Bridge going home, thousands of them walking because the city was shut down. I told him about the flags that were everywhere. All the houses, the businesses, the schools, and even cars had flags. A surge of patriotism had burst. It warms my heart to even think about it now. The unity that happened overnight in America. I hope you all have flags at your home and that you're flying them proudly. May God be with you till we meet again.